Hi guys, welcome to this video. Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to go through a few things. I'm going to share the screen as well. We're going to go through who is the goat, energy, meaning energy in general, being lighthouses, another one on the watchers, is aging a code as opposed to a program, and more on the sacred places. I also want to cover the voice to skull technology that they may be using. So I'm going to read from my notes right here. And we're going to start with who is the goat. So let me just pull up a few screens here just so you're kind of following along. Okay, you know when you see commercials, like advertisements, commercials, anything they're throwing at you, right? You guys know, if you've been following this channel for a while, like 2+ years ago, I even had a video dedicated to ads, every single ad, like kind of like Google had a lot of ads out there, all of that. Now I came across an ad that had to do with a goat. This is so interesting. I was supposed to record this video a few hours ago, and they were literally distracting so much with noise pollution and screaming kids all of a sudden in the background, like in the neighborhood, where I'm just like, all right, at the point where I'm recording it right now, I was supposed to do it a few hours ago. You're already like so exhausted and everything. And then they're putting all these tech issues onto you too. So anyhow, I'm going to pull up the screen right here. If you're familiar with Aflac, which is an insurance company, they had this commercial advertisement out. And I guess it was already out in 2022, but I just came across it recently, or rather, I came across it and I was like, ooh, I've never seen this commercial in that particular light. So they would not shut up about who's the goat, who's the goat. It was like the most obnoxious commercial to watch ever. I'm not sure if it was like 30 seconds long or a minute long, just a random ad running in front of a video that I was going to watch. And I was like, what do you mean, who's the goat? Like, why do they even say who's the goat? What does goat really mean? It was so persistent and so drilled into my head where I was like, what? Hold on. They're not saying goat for no reason. Goat means something. So when you look up at the definition of this commercial, throughout the campaign, the Gap goat serves as an antagonist who shows up with unexpected medical bills for hardworking Americans at inopportune times, all the while bleeding out the catchphrase Gap. I don't know. That's how they say it in the commercial. The goat represents the gap that can be left when health insurance doesn't cover all of one's medical expenses. So everyone who lives in the US knows that medical insurance here is a complete disaster as opposed to when you live in Europe or other places. But then on the other hand, the Affleck's also an insurance company. So obviously they want to make things more bleak than it really is. So I'm like, okay, so that's the official version behind who's the goat. Now, what does goat mean? When you look at definition of a goat, and you get like a really good definition, which is not the definition that they're using. What's the spiritual meaning of a goat? Sure-footedness, desire, creative energy, tranquility, aspiration, faith, all those things. What the Bible says about the goat as a metaphor or a metaphor. By the way, I'm not religious or anything. I'm just looking up all these different definitions. The male goat represents strong-mindedness, singleness of purpose, and leadership rather than following. But there's also something in the scripture where it implies sin, or it symbolizes sin. And that's supposedly, I don't know if it's like Matthew something or whatever. I have no idea, somewhere in the Bible. So we go to this definition, which is the Freemason definition. And I'm just going to read off the screen. You can follow along. Riding the goat. So you have the symbol of riding a goat. Popular belief has often identified Masonic initiation with the riding of a goat. but where or when did the expression originate? Masonic historians have been at a loss as to the source of this myth, speculating as far afield as the horns on the four corners of the altar used by Old Testament Hebrews and echoed in modern Scottish rite ritual, or the myth of the goat-headed Baphomet. So this is also interesting because when I was doing the entire Lionsgate, you can see Masonic symbology, you can see lions everywhere. I in particular had comments from Scotland, like Edinburgh region or other regions in Scotland. They were like, hey, all of these symbols are all over our country, our flags, everything, similar to England, the UK. And it keeps coming up over and over again, all these symbols. So Freemasons use the goat, supposedly. And here you have a commercial from Aflac, which I'm pretty sure the name Aflac is also some Masonic something, if you really digest through that name and everything. But here you have a commercial, an ad, which is meant to hypnotize the masses, which is meant to put a spell on the masses. That's basically what commercials do, right? They're there to hypnotize you, to kind of like put you in a certain frequency so that you either buy something or you're being put in a fear state, depending on the commercial. And TV, movies, commercials, and ads have gotten so bad over these past few years that I low-key thought, I was watching something, and I don't watch a whole lot of things. So when I watch something, I pay attention to it, because if I'm already spending my energy on a movie, which I then want to dissect or go through, it either better be good, or it either have like a lot of things in it that I can actually talk about. So I was watching this thing from 2017. I think it was even called Camelot or something like that. It was like this action type movie with a lot of AI. So even back then, we're talking about 6-7 years ago, they were already using a whole bunch of AI for, people turning into monsters, those kind of things. And they must have had that tech for millions of years already, at least the past few decades in the movie industry. So when I stopped watching that movie, unfortunately, I actually watched it before bedtime, which is never a good idea, as I'm starting to realize I had the worst night ever. I had like one nightmare after another. And what I got on that is that, first of all, a lot of these movies, especially the newer ones, so not necessarily the ones from the 80s or 70s or 50s or 40s, those have a different subliminal messaging and a different spell they put on people. They're still programming, as we know, but not in the same way the more recent videos do. So after watching that movie, I really felt attacked, severely attacked, like on certain frequency levels. And I think a lot of it was encoded in their movie, similar to how it's encoded in the Lionsgate logo, which is a movie company, those type of things. So if you really pay attention to it, you can catch it. Or if you kind of slow-mo it, you can actually catch like an eyeball here and there, like I already said in other videos that I've done. So I do feel there's definitely psychic attacks in those type of movies. And you got to ask yourself, do you really want, because these are movies that children watch, do you really want your children to go through that? Because if it's already disrupting my energy, which I'm an adult, and I can choose whatever I want to see and watch and how I spend my time, if I'm already picking up on that, how much are empathic kids, or kids who are even way more open because they have like their heart wide open, they haven't had like disappointments or sacrifices or whatever, how much is actually going to affect their energy and put them in turmoil? Because I was quite taken aback by this type of movie. It had a few scenes where people were killed and, kind of like the throat, all of that kind of sliced through, and not very great, to be honest with you. But I was already a bit, I don't want to say traumatized, that's too strong of a word, but I was quite taken aback energetically. I could feel psychic attacks coming through in that movie, in addition to the nightmares that I had. And what I also got on it was that there were certain frequencies in that particular movie that were trying to program our cell, like my cell body, your cell, if you've seen that movie, our cell bodies in general, and put something in our heads too, by the way. And so, people have children who play video games all day long, like all of that ties into the same programming that they want to do. So you as a parent should probably ask yourself, after seeing that, and I was like, I'm not a parent yet or anything, but I do have nieces and nephews, and I do communicate with kids around me. I'm like, Would I ever want to put any child through any of those movies, like, ever? Because it's absolute crazy how they've just changed and how they're just really programming us on every single level. So not even programming us through the eyes and the ears and getting to the mind, like infiltrating the mind, but really on a frequency level where it took almost a day to shake that off. I had to really cleanse my energy. I had to like stabilize after that. And like I said, I'm a pretty stable adult. I'm not a child who's influenced easily or whatever. And these are movies that are meant for children or teenagers. So yeah, there's so much that goes into it. But let's go back to the goat. The goat has been both a positive and negative symbol throughout history. In depictions of Pan or Dionysus, the goat carried the favorable connotation of youth, merriment, freedom, and love. As the attributes of these Greek deities became identified with the Christian Satan, the goat became a symbol for excess, drunkenness, gluttony, and licentiousness. Not even sure you can say that word on YouTube, but whatever. Goats represent the souls of the wicked, according to Matthew so-and-so. And for discussion of the role of the goat in the Greek drama, see Francisco Rodriguez Abrados, Gerald Frank Ellis, and all these other people who've written on it. Rather than anti-Masonry, it was in attacks on the old fellows that riding the goat was first claimed to be an aspect of initiation. So these Freemasons are using the symbol of a goat to ride like a devil to hell, and also as a rite of initiation. That kind of tells you everything you need to know about Masonry and Freemasons. So this article kind of goes on with other things about, what it could be, Masonic initiation in the 1840s and all of those things. So yeah, interesting that they're using a goat symbol in an Affleck commercial, which is meant to hypnotize the masses, put a spell on them, and subliminally program their mind, their energy field, everything. Now, also, I was trying to look up this duck meaning. I think it's a duck. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a swan. It looks like a really huge duck, so it could even be like a baby swan or whatever. I'm sure there's a meaning behind that too. But so much to the goat. If anyone else has any messages on the goat, or if you find something out about a goat, like in your own culture, in your own city, or in your own town, definitely let us know, because I personally am starting to get really interested in it. Now, I just want to go on with a few notes. I'm not sure we'll get through all of them in this video. So energy, right? Energy fields. Okay, so really, 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 really important. And people don't realize how important it is. What the type of energy you give off is what other people are going to react to. Most of them are not going to react to that in a conscious manner, but more like a subconscious, instinctual manner. And so if you have a pet, specifically like a cat and a dog and whatever else, horses are really good with it too, but horses are not necessarily considered pets, right? They're more like animals. So if you are around an animal or a pet, your animal pet is going to pick up on your energy right away. They're also going to pick up on the energies of people around you, because they are way more instinctual than humans at this point. I do feel at a certain point humans were extremely instinctual, but we've just lost it, right? We've lost it through the entire technology they put around us, most likely from the industrialization and on, to be honest with you, because that's when they put all this noise into our reality. And I want to talk about the noise and how it's related to AI too, because I'm just starting to notice it so many times in my own life. Like, it's insane. I can barely even focus when an AC or whatever is on. But yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to briefly just talk about. So I had a friend, my friend has ADHD, at least she says she does. She doesn't take medications or anything for it. But she literally said, if there was a podcast or a video out there that's longer than like 5 or 10 minutes long, she can't stay focused on it, because there are some podcasts out there that are like an hour long or 1.5 hours long. So I just wanted to ask, is anyone who has ADHD watching my video? I mean, at this point, we're already 15 minutes in, so I may have lost you. But if so, is it true? Like, can you not focus on any video that's longer than 5 or 10 minutes long? Because if that's the case, I would actually really like to know. I'm not sure I attract those type of people, but it's an interesting message I got from her. So she personally doesn't really follow my stuff in that sense. She was just kind of saying it in a side conversation. I was like, oh, interesting. So maybe I'm losing the entire ADHD market here, or people who, could potentially be interested in some material, but they can't stay focused for longer than a few minutes. So if you want to comment on that, definitely comment below. So whatever energy you give out, people are going to react to that. People are always going to read your energy, respond to your energy field. It's not going to be necessarily in a conscious matter, more a subconscious matter. So what that means is if you're going to have a job interview, or if you're going to go somewhere that's really, really important, like some sort of, I don't know, court settlement, or signing papers at the bank, whatever it is, really kind of have that in the back of your mind, because if you're hyping yourself up at home, you're kind of like overly nervous about it. People are going to pick up on that subconsciously, and you need to really become more calm if that's the case. If you really want to win whatever case it is that you want to win, or you want to apply for the loan or get the job or whatever it is that you want. And so when you're somewhere, I notice that because I take my dog with me everywhere at this point. Sorry, the microphone fell down. So when I'm somewhere, like, let's just say we're in a public place, or we're on a train or public transport, whatever, every time my dog gets more nervous, let's just say I had this case when I took her on the subway the other day. All of a sudden she was kind of chewing her leash and all those things. And I'm like, oh, this is so strange, because she always comes with me. It's not a new scenario or whatever, but you could literally notice the energy of the people change too. Here in New York specifically, people just kind of, they get out at a stop, new people come in at the next stop, those type of things. And so what it kind of told me, or what it tells me when those scenarios happen, or even when we're somewhere in a public space, is that the people around us are energetically projecting something, out from their energy field. And since my pet is instinctual, she picks up on that easily, or way, way, way more easy than other people would. For example, I do pick up on that to a certain degree, because, once you start reading people, you read everything. But I feel pets usually have their senses even more heightened, because that's the only thing they can really rely on, right? They don't really communicate with language. They don't really communicate with touch or looking into each other's eyes, but they really communicate with feeling your energy field and feeling other people's energy field. Okay, let's move on to lighthouses. So I also want to say it's extremely, extremely important right now to notice and to realize that you, or whoever else you would consider, you're going to be a lighthouse to someone. Even if you don't realize how important you are to other people, you may get a hint that you are. So if you are, in a calmer way, and people kind of take advice from you, and I'm sure there's different types of degrees to this, but I'm sure everyone can relate to it to a certain degree. It's really important that you stay anchored in your energy. So as an example, when I go somewhere, unless I really want to meet people, I don't really tell anyone, like if there's an event, whatever, I just want to meet new people, I just kind of go there. So I'm not someone who necessarily has to make plans with a huge group of people, unless we're planning on like barbecuing in a park or going to a friend's place. So there's this event here in New York that happens twice a year. It's on 4 different days, so it's kind of dispersed through the summer. And out of the blue, I woke up one morning, and it was one of those days that this event was happening. It's kind of like a festival thing, it's like a summery thing, and it kind of happens on an island where it's kind of hard to get to. So no subway or whatever goes there, but you have to take a boat and a ferry to get there. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go there today because it's one of the last days of summer and the weather's amazing. And I really want to see this. I want to meet new people. I just want to be there in the action. Didn't tell anyone about it. no single friend, didn't post about it on social media. I usually don't do that anyhow beforehand. So I go there and I was already running late and I was already questioning whether or not I should even go there because it started raining and since it's an outdoor thing, you kind of have to be outdoors. I didn't bring an umbrella. Started raining. It was basically the last 2 hours of the event. At this point it's like 4 p.m. It was ending at 5 or 6 p.m. So I almost didn't even make it on the boat or the ferry because I was like, well, what's the point? I'm only going to be here for an hour. Is it really worth it? Regardless, I still went there because I knew if I didn't go there, I would really regret it. I wouldn't be able to go for another year. And we all know that if you can do things today, just do them today. You never know what's going to happen next year. So I arrive, I walk around for like half an hour, and then I go to a different part of this island because I wanted to grab something to eat. And out of the blue, my one friend, like literally hadn't been in touch with him for 3 months at least. My one friend is like calling my name, and then he kind of passed me on the shoulder because I didn't react to it. I was like, there is no way anyone's gonna know that I'm here. So you're probably just calling a name that's similar to me. If people say Laura, there's like a million Lauras around me usually. So I'm like, I don't think this, I didn't even turn around because I was like, this is probably a different person they mean. He taps me on the back and I'm like, what? No way. I like, no way. And the first thing he says, I knew you would be here. I knew exactly where to find you and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, this is getting a little bit out there because first of all, we're not like together or a couple or romantically involved at all, but we're just friends. And so I hadn't talked to this person in months. We're not even that close of friends, to be honest with you. We have known each other for a little bit, for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, if you ever had any doubt that you are not living in the right city or you are not at the right place at the right time, for me, it was a slap in the face being like, I know exactly I'm supposed to be here in this city. I'm supposed to be here right now and hold that light out for other people because he was actually looking for me. He needed advice in regards to certain things that were going on in his life, as it turns out, because we ended up hanging out for a few hours after that. And he was a bit desperate in that sense because he couldn't really talk to anyone else about it. It was more like a spiritual thing. And I was like, okay, it was just like the weirdest thing ever. I was like, if I ever had any doubt, because, you obviously think about moving, especially in a city like this, where everything was so insane, restrictions were insane. People were attacking you on the subway for not wearing a muzzle and all those. So the way of insanity that I've experienced over the past 3 years and the way that everything just kind of went away and people wanted to forget, but you can't really forget, when you were one of the only people standing in your power and freedom, and you were just being attacked so much, like energetically, physically, even. So I had kind of doubted. I was like, why am I still here? What am I doing here? But I always kind of knew you still have to be here for a little bit. You just have to be here, even if it doesn't feel 100% right. There's still a reason you're here. And I like New York, I like, don't get me wrong. It's just with the way the city has been turning, it's obviously very different. And so that for me, that was just another beautiful confirmation that 100% I'm still supposed to be here. If I keep running into situations like that, I know I'm a lighthouse to other people here. And this is not even on this channel. This has nothing to do with this business in general, because he doesn't follow that or anything. It's just when people pick up on your energy, and I'm not saying that for me in particular, I'm saying that for every single one of you. If you have that feeling, people pick up on your energy. If you're that anchor of light, for the lack of a better word, and not in a new age term, people are going to be drawn to you, especially in times like this, because times like this are extremely confusing and extremely hurtful too. People are dying left and right because they took what, and because of other agendas that are rolling out. People don't understand the world no more. They don't understand the financial collapses. They don't understand the Masonic rituals and symbology and certain things. And if you are that beacon of light and also that anchor of light, meaning you're anchoring it in wherever you are, people will pick up on that. And I could literally not believe my eyes and ears when I saw that person who didn't even know I was going to be here at that specific time run towards me. And I was like, wow, I've done something right in still being here, because I was there for that person when they needed me. And I can't necessarily say that about other friends. I did lose friends over the years, also losing them to death and everything. So it does feel good when you can at least help one person, but I do think I'm helping more than one person. Okay, so much to that. I think we're gonna go through a few more. Okay, watchers. I'm not sure I covered watchers on this channel. I think I had a few other videos out there, but I'm not sure I re-uploaded them. So the watchers, in short, you're going to have watchers in the astral. Are they AI? I know my watchers are not AI. They're actual people because I've seen their eyes and I've kind of seen their faces. It's very hard to tap into that because they're so disguised, but I've seen it on at least 2 occasions. And so for some people, the watchers are, everything's watching you through the screen, like through this camera. You have it's being linked to a cloud. It's being linked into a system where they do the entire facial recognition, the voice recognition, all of that. And that's kind of what Alison McDowell covers on her channel, how everything's being converted into this cloud, how they're creating artificial versions of you. And then the same with the actors, when they finally realize that they're going to be replaced, once they give their face and voice and everything away, they started protesting, but it's probably already a bit too late for that anyhow, because AI is being built all around you. They already have AI generated models on Instagram and Facebook and everything. So in short, you're going to have watchers like that, which are not necessarily a person, it's a program. And that's been going on for the longest of time, for at least 10, 20, 30 years. It's most likely a military operation, but it's similar to when they rolled out the biometrics on the passport. They were already taking all of your facial stuff. And that happened around 2013, 2014, at least here in the US. It really rolled out 2020 and on. And I do know that because I was traveling during that time and I noticed it. I was like, wow, they really replaced everything during this so-called pandemic or whatever, right? It's all just a cover up for what's really going on. So that's a form of watching, which is more like AI generated watching. And then you have actual watchers, so I think we have different types of watchers who are actual people. And the way I saw mine, one had these piercing blue eyes and very light hair. I want to say blonde hair for sure. The other one also had like greenish blue eyes, and I think sandy blonde hair or like darker blonde hair. I'm not sure if these are coming from hundreds of years ago, like probably Viking times, like 1,000+ years ago, if they kind of got stuck on me and they're kind of following me from lifetime to lifetime, kind of seeing me in the astral. But I keep picking up on them, especially when I do these really deep journeys and kind of really go in and try to read on matrix related stuff. And then of course you get extremely psychically attacked and a lot of stuff happens in your life. Like they try to attack my dog, they try to attack people who I like, and they really try to get to you in the dreams and everything. So I don't do those too frequently because of that, because the attacks are just complete insanity and it's almost not worth my own life for it. But whenever that does happen, like on 2 occasions, I have seen their eyes really clearly. And I also felt they were trying to program the mind somehow, which at this point is not possible. I mean, with me, the control I have over my mind, because I've been really digging into it over the past 3 years, it's not really possible. And that's why I'm saying you need to be you need to treat your mind like a precious tool, because the amount of programming that they're throwing at us right now, it's absolute. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before. And so video games, movies, commercials, everything, every single thing. The mind is a very powerful tool. So is everything else, your body, mind, soul, all of that is a very powerful tool, but they're really trying to get to it. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure if these watchers come from the first time I tapped into it was like, oh, they're coming from 1,000 years ago, or maybe around the year 1000, like Viking times. It doesn't feel like they're new. And I'm not exactly sure what technology they use to spy on me, or if you have watchers too to spy on you. I'm not sure. It's very hard to read on it, but I see their eyes very clearly whenever I go really, really deep in, and I know they're spying on me constantly. I mean, unless they're asleep or whatever, but there's some technology they're using to kind of get into your head and get into your mind. That's all I kind of got on that at that point. So it's extremely important to be in full control of your mind, and you need to be absolutely sane for that. And so it's very hard when you're already battling a certain mental disorder, like schizophrenia is a prime example of that, where they're going to try to mess with your mind so frequently and so much where you don't even know what's real, what's not real. I'm not saying you have schizophrenia or whatever, but I mean, I see it, you see it all the time. You know, you see it with homeless people, you see it with people who aren't even homeless. It's one of those mental diseases and disorders, and there are many more, like I already discussed in that video too. They just really want to get to your mind. And when I talk about thoughts being a psychic attack, especially negative thoughts, that was really confirmed through that too, you know, through seeing those watchers again in the astral. Okay, there's so much more to say, but I think we're going to go through, we can't cover the sacred places today. I think I'm going to go through aging a code. So let's look up the difference between codes and program difference. Well, okay, here's one by upgrad.com. While coding means writing codes from one language to another, programming means to program a machine with a given set of instructions to run. Okay, I originally thought, and this is a few videos down, I think from half a year ago or so, originally I thought aging is a program. But then in the most recent insight that I got, the most recent journey that I took, no, aging is actually a code. So the mind is a tool, possibly the most powerful tool that we have right now. And I am convinced you can crack the aging code with it. Meaning aging is more of a code than a program. And the difference is, I guess this is not part of a machine necessarily, but it's like a code that's written within us, either within our mind. You know how some people say, and I have a friend like this, and I saw this friend recently, so I know exactly the aging code is running very deeply. And I keep wanting to say program, but I guess it's a code. Either way, it probably doesn't even matter for most of the people unless you really work with programming and codes. She keeps saying, and she's not even that old, you know, she's barely in her 40s at this point, and she keeps saying, oh my gosh, I feel so old, I feel, you know, really emphasizing on her age, and that's why her body's giving up, and she has all these things. Yeah, she has issues with certain foods, like allergies, she has issues with all these things. And I'm like, listen, you've always, like, I knew you 10 years ago, you were always this way. You know, this has nothing to do with aging. This has to do with you eating crappy food, or you not knowing what's good for your body, or you maybe having to do a major detox, and you being tired and bloated and all those things. Yeah, a lot of it does go back to food, but I feel a lot of it also goes back to mindset. And so just seeing her recently again, I just keep getting confirmation that, you know, as cliche as it sounds, age is really in your head. And it's kind of in your mind. And you are really only as old as you feel and think you are. And most people are programmed to believe, because they're a certain age, you know, because they're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, their body has to give up. They have to act a certain age. They have to have kids at that point. Otherwise, their body has a biological clock ticking, or society's not going to accept it. Like all these things, you know, I'm sure you can come up with a million examples how the aging program is in your way. But it's really a code that supposedly you can rewrite or kind of alter, and you can do that with your mind. And also feel, obviously you can do it with intention, but I also feel you can do that with your own body. So if it's kind of stuck in your DNA or your cell body structure, you could alter the code or rewrite the code somehow. And maybe that's something that needs to be cracked or recoded or whatever. All right, you guys. So is aging more a code than a program? It does appear to be that way, right? Is AI heartless? Yes, I do think AI is so distracting and loud. And I think AI definitely, I mean, AI has been around for thousands of years, of course, but I think it got worse with the industrialization, robbing us of our peace and forgetting about how peaceful nature is, and that we are actually in a natural state. We're supposed to be connected with nature. So I think I'm going to cover that in the next video, though, because there's a little bit more that goes into that. Thank you so much for tuning in and everything you do. If you're new to this channel, definitely subscribe. check out my website, link is below, and talk to you very soon. And let me know what you think. If you have any messages or any insight on the goat from your perspective, maybe you can find the goat in your country somehow. And until then, bye guys. Have a wonderful one.